Hey, what's up you guys? You're watching Team APS, and it's really late, but I'm recording this video anyway. It's going to be 10 recently released decks that are really underrated, really underlooked, and you should take a look at them. I'm going to run through these really fast. Let's get started. So the first deck is Aroma, or just Aroma. This is that new plant deck that basically is all about having more life points in your opponent and they get a lot of cool effects. For whatever reason, people just haven't been using them. I mean, I try to get deck profiles of them and nobody has really built the deck. But what's really cool about it is that it's kind of really strong control strategy. You basically just use your cards to gain life points, and then you just summon your Aromages, use your like Arid Winds and your Human Winds, trap cards to just gain advantage, kind of really limit your opponent. It's actually a really fun and interesting take on plants. Next deck is Red Eyes. Red Eyes just got a whole bunch of support. There's like a load of different ways you can play it. They've got like, you know, the fusion thing that you pretty much have to use. They got the ritual thing, and then lots of cool new spells, traps, monsters. Really can be a very troublesome deck to face because it's like aggressive and has a lot of burn strategies, and you can just quickly get in there and deal a lot of damage to your opponent and just cut them off guard no matter what deck they're playing. Next up is Deskbots, which is a deck that's actually been out for quite a long time, but its support's been coming really slowly. It used to just be a very dedicated OTK deck that was a little bit fragile, a little bit linear, but as it gets more support, it's actually gaining a lot more recurrence, and it's much more consistent to actually OTK your opponent with it. Machine duplication is absolutely brutal in this deck, and it's really just worth a try because, like a lot of the other decks in this list, if your opponent doesn't see this coming, they're pretty much going to lose really fast. So the next deck is Traptrix. Why am I mentioning Traptrix? They've been around forever. Well, they're getting a new Xyz monster that it was leaked quite a while ago, but we're supposed to be getting it in an upcoming set. I'm not sure if it's Dimension of Chaos or Breakers of Shadow, but what's really cool about it is that it basically kind of pulls the archetype together. It's like their Harpy's pet phantasmal dragon, if you will, that just sort of protects all of them and then actually lets you use trap hole cards from your deck, which is really powerful. And the Traptrix monsters alone, you know, being able to search trap holes is good. Void trap hole is more relevant these days, things like that. And you know, you still get access to like a really strong, solid rank 4 engine, so definitely a really good, easy to play deck. Next is Raidraptors, which just don't really get a whole lot of credit. I mean, they've been getting support for a long time too, and it's like, you know, literally new school Blackwings. They get more advantage, they search more, and you get access to rank 4s. I mean, it's just a really very straightforward and powerful deck. You have even like a once per turn Rhoda card. I really don't see why more people aren't at least playing around with this type of strategy. Next up is Toon. So Toon's got a whole bunch of support in Dragons of Legend 2, and now the deck is really quite threatening. People like sometimes sort of complain about the fact that it isn't as cohesive and kind of has some consistency problems. But the best part about the Toon support cards is that they're really obnoxiously powerful. So, you know, things like Comic Hand that act it's like a snatch deal, and Shadow Toon that literally can burn your opponent for like 3k sometimes. They're really very like hit or miss cards, but they can take your opponent by surprise. So like a lot of the other decks on this list, like I was saying, if your opponent does not know what's going on, then you can quickly steal games with this deck. Next is Speedroids. These came out of High Speed Riders, you know, everybody's just kind of looking at stuff like Psy-frames. It's a really cool little archetype. It's just a very basic but fast-paced synchro sort of archetype. It's seriously focused on making wind monsters, and the cool part is that they actually have Kendama, which can special summon itself back as one of their synchros. It's level 6. And they even have like a Stratos effect. I mean, like how many times do we really get a generic Stratos, even by today's power creepy standards? So it's definitely something fun to look at, especially if you like the idea of, you know, just sort of a more 5Ds feeling deck. Next is Superheavy Samurai. Terrell recently did a deck profile on this if you want to check it out. But why I mentioned this is I got like Traptrix, they don't even have all of their support yet. So right now Superheavy Samurai is kind of a fun, you could call it gimmicky deck to play because, you know, it doesn't exactly, it's not exactly the most optimal thing, but they're getting more and more support. And so the reason why I think that's fun is because it operates a lot differently than many other decks today. So I think that for anybody who's kind of interested in that, you should give it a look. Next is Synchron. So we just got the Synchron Extreme, or whatever it's called, structure deck, and that gave us basically the one Synchron that everybody's kind of using, Jet Synchron, but also several other new Synchron support cards. So it's a little bit like High Speedroids. If you're into a sort of 5Ds type of deck where it's just a lot about, you know, synchro summoning and synchro summoning and synchro summoning, and you like things like Quasar, this deck really is pretty much for you. It's really powerful, it's really fast, it can drop Quasar, like it's getting so consistent. I lose to this deck on Dueling Network all the time. So definitely a good pick. And cheap too. And last but not least is sort of a shout out to all of the anime fans. Build a legendary deck. So for those of you who don't know what that is, it's basically the legendary knights and the accompanying legendary dragons with the spells that you have to use to summon them. So like the Fang of Critias, the Claw of Hermos, and forget the name of the last one. And like all this stuff sort of started getting released in Dragons of Legend last year, and then this year in Dragons of Legend 2, the set that gave the Toon support, they released further support cards for it. So it's not necessarily like a metagame threat, but if you're like kind of a fan of the anime and you liked the Waking the Dragon season with like, darts and the Leviathan Dragon thing, then it's really kind of a cool fan type of deck. So I thought I'd throw it in just kind of for good measure to round things off. And those are my 10 cool decks that you can just try out. These are very underrated. They're all recent decks. They're all pretty good investments in my opinion. Some of them are getting more support. And I just really think that if you are kind of sick of just the Shaddoll, Necroz, whatever, or even whatever the upcoming meta is, Magic Spectres for 4 Mage and stuff like that, and Cosmos, then these are some cool decks to look at if you just want to have a little bit of fun. Some of them are a little bit more budget than others, some of them are a little bit easier to play or get a hold of, but if nothing else, try out at least one of the decks in this list. And in the comments, leave suggestions for other cool decks that you think are underrated and people should try out more, and hope you guys like the video. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, follow me on social networks, and I'll catch you guys later.